Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a trip down memory lane to see the video game accessories that didn't quite stand the test of time. These are the 20 weirdest video game accessories. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Atari 2600 Stick Station. What you'll come to learn from this list is that the weirdest items, the items that lasted on players' shelves about as long as a banana, were expensive ways to solve a minor problem that didn't need solving with a full product. And although the Atari 2600 controls would jerk about like crazy, players found that sticking $1 suction caps to the bottom would easily solve the problem. Atari decided instead to sell players a massive plank of wood to shove the controller in. Overpriced because of a logo, the Stick Station was unnecessary and egregious. Exciting Boxing's inflatable controller. In 1987, Konami released Exciting Boxing for the Famicom. At first glance, it seemed like a typical boxing game. However, the unique twist is that you don't use a regular controller to dodge, block, and punch. Instead, your controller is an inflatable punching bag featuring the image of a boxer. By hitting this balloon, your punches are mirrored in the game. The controller only functioned on this one game and was basically useless otherwise. Also, controllers that you need to beat the piss out of don't have a long shelf life. Wii Bowling Ball.
Nice throw!
I think a general rule of thumb should be, don't make video game accessories that are compatible with a single game. And to add a line to this in case people still don't get it, at the very least don't make video game accessories that are only compatible with a single mini-game in a larger game. For those who felt that Wii Bowling lacked realism with the standard controller, this accessory was likely a perfect fit. To use it, you simply opened it up, inserted your Wii remote, and then used it like a regular bowling ball. Except you don't let go of it. So basically it doesn't change the experience even a little bit. Not surprisingly, this wasn't an official Nintendo accessory. NES Rob. Rob, or Robotic Operating Buddy, was introduced by Nintendo in 1985 as an accessory for the NES. It was designed in response to the 1983 North American video game Crash, aiming to market the NES as a toy rather than just a console. However, Rob did not last and only managed to produce 2 supported games. Despite its lackluster reception, Rob later reappeared as a playable character in games like Super Smash Bros., with the majority of this generation's gamers assuming he must be some classic gaming legend. Nope. Sony Glastron. The Sony Glastron can be seen as an early precursor to the PSVR. While it didn't include any virtual reality technology, it did manage to bring the TV screen right up to your fucking eyes. Essentially, it was a large visor that blared the display straight into your face, claiming to stimulate the experience of watching a 52-inch TV from just 6.5 feet away. Sony produced 5 different models of the Glastron, and it came with a hefty price tag of $500. But don't go to Sony, for only $250, I'll shine a flashlight into your eyes and sing the first act of Miss Saigon. Accent optional? Sega Dreamcast Fishing Rod. If my dad walked into the living room to see me playing with the Sega Dreamcast Fishing Rod, I can't tell you how quickly I'd have been thrown out of the house. Surprisingly, this wasn't the first or last gaming accessory made specifically for fishing games, but it's the only official first-party one. Designed by Sega for the Dreamcast, it debuted alongside Sega Bass Fishing. While the rod was ultimately compatible with only 6 fishing games, it could also, oddly enough, be used with Soul Calibur. I know Player 2 always gets the crap controller, but this is ridiculous. Game Gear TV Tuner.
And how can you best part with them then?
Well, I have got a lot of memorabilia
At the time, the Sega Game Gear's main selling point was its color screen, something that Game Boy lacked. While it wasn't a bad handheld, it doesn't stand out much today. However, it did have one cool feature, an attachment that lets you watch TV on the go. Portable TVs of this size were rare in the early 90s, but everyone who saw them pop up regularly on The Simpsons wanted one. This was a nifty addition that made the Game Gear more appealing. Regardless of the short battery life, it was still pretty revolutionary. Wii Balance Board Steps. I guess these aren't that weird, but much like the Atari 2600 wooden plank, it just kind of felt off. When you're whipping out your credit card to buy 4 pieces of plastic, unpowered, hard plastic, you second guess your choices. Nintendo's balance board was a great peripheral for the week or so that most people used it with Wii Fit before it was stashed under the couch and forgotten. And if it wasn't already annoying to balance on, you could raise it a couple inches off the ground. So now when you accidentally clip the edge of it when moving around, you'll go headfirst into your telly. That's nice. Babysitting Mama. There's something I find deeply upsetting about shoving a Wii remote into a doll's bottom, and thanks to the game Babysitting Mama and its accompanying doll controller, or controller saddle, this is something you'll have to do. The accessory isn't inherently weird, in fact for some it was actually a lot of fun, but once again, it's compatible with one game and was essentially a Wii remote cozy. Cyberbike. Before we get into it, let's just acknowledge the obvious. Yes, it's a real exercise bike with built-in Wii controls. That's it. The issue with the Cyberbike is that it doesn't offer anything to justify its existence. Sure, it has compatible games so you can cycle your little me character through a beautiful park, but so do most actual exercise bikes. Not only that, but they're cheaper. I mean, an actual bike is cheaper than the Cyberbike. It was basically the biggest flop for video game products with the word cyber in their title up until 2020. Aura Interactor. The Aura Interactor was essentially a backpack version of the Rumble Pack, designed to react whenever your character took damage. When your character got hit, the Aura Interactor would vibrate, giving you the sensation of taking damage. This is a product gamers have been asking for since the dawn of gaming. However, the technology wasn't advanced enough to differentiate between types of hits. Whether you were throwing a punch in Mortal Kombat 2 or getting hit, the feedback felt the same, which is wildly lame. Nintendo Switch Neck Stand. This is the only item on this list that I'm embarrassed to admit I really want. Have you ever seen a parent using a baby sling and thought, I could really use something like that for my Nintendo Switch? Me too! While this accessory could be useful, it should never be used on a plane, train, or public space, like it's advertised for. If I see you with this out and about, I might beat you up. GameCube Donkey Kong Bongos. This is the one I truly can't wrap my head around. Not because they're so niche, not because they're on one of the more forgotten video game consoles of all time, and not because they were only compatible with 4 games, but because they were so damn popular. Every second GameCube house had a pair of these bongos, and they functioned basically the same as the accessories for Guitar Hero or Rock Band. I'm done trying to understand people, let's just move on.
Beat you guys again.
Okay, let's work on that new plug it in. 2, 3, 4.
Hori Katana Sword Controller. It's rare to find a controller you'd rather display than actually use, but the Hori Katana for PlayStation 2 is one of those exceptions. This controller was an official accessory for Capcom's Onimusha 3, using motion capture to let players mimic the game's hack and slash mechanics with their own katana. Surprisingly large, it measured over 3 feet in length, so not only was it incredibly cool looking, but it also smashed through all your most beloved and most expensive items like an unstrapped Wii controller. NES Laser Scope. Konami's Laser Scope was an accessory licensed for the NES, designed specifically for the game Laser Invasion, though it could also be used with any game compatible with the more popular NES Zapper. And before we say anything else, let me say this in relation to gaming accessories. Konami, chill. It was essentially a head-mounted laser pen intended to detect when the player said the word fire, and then shoot within the game. Can you guess what might have been a problem here? Not only was the mic unreliable with players saying fire, fire, for f***'s sake, fire, but it also picked up all noise, sometimes firing when your neighbor next door coughed in their car at work. Resident Evil Chainsaw. Not only is this one of the worst video game controller accessories ever created, but it's not an easy one to display on your coffee table. Released alongside the PlayStation 2 and GameCube versions of Resident Evil 4, this controller doesn't use motion controls or anything interesting like that. It's just a chainsaw with PS2 buttons attached to it. It is a nightmare to use. There is no reason to opt for this controller over a regular PS2 controller, except for aesthetics, if you can call it that. Wii Cooking Mama Kit. The fad of throwing the Wii controller up babies or shoving it into bowling balls isn't where it ends, because the Wii Cooking Mother kit for Cooking Mama is essentially a large plastic Swiss Army knife for cooking that attaches to your Wii remote to supposedly enhance the gameplay. It includes a frying pan, knife, fork, and spatula. Many online reviewers criticized it as cumbersome and somewhat unnecessary. Many me's criticized it as the worst thing Nintendo has produced since E.T.
Mama.
Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy, released 20 years ahead of its time, was Nintendo's first attempt at virtual reality. Unfortunately, it became a story of disaster from start to finish. After 4 years of development, its 3D LED technology was scaled back due to health and cost concerns. We should be thankful. They redirected the funds from the project that was literally going to blast dangerous lasers into our eyes and brains into the Nintendo 64. Samba De Amigos Maracas. The maraca controllers that accompany the game Samba De Amigos may not have been the weirdest video game accessory of all time, but they ranked this high because they were easily the most likely to be embedded in the drywall from pure annoyance. Rhythm games have been around for quite some time, but rarely do the controllers make such an annoying sound to go along with them. NES Power Glove. This Nintendo NES accessory from 1989 bears a slight resemblance to a Fallout Pip-Boy, but that's where the similarities end, except for the bit where you wipe dust off it at the start of the game. The Power Glove was intended to showcase the future of gesture-controlled gaming with its motion and finger-flexing sensor controls. Unfortunately, it turned out to be more of an example of how we weren't ready for this technology yet. To make matters worse, it was only available for right-handed players. It was one of the more substantial gaming accessory financial fails of the 80s and 90s, and we should all give it the NES Power middle finger. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.